want to be the mayor of the city of Cullman because I love people. I have 3 businesses already in Cullman. I have a mechanic shop where we do not mark up the parts, which helps people tremendously. I also have 2 barber shops where we do haircuts for $5, which a lot of people appreciate that. I had police officers, city workers, a lot of the customers, citizens of the town that asked me to do this, so no more to stretch myself than to do this. I would be proud to do that. And I would also be the first lady to represent Cullman as the first city mayor. And I'm nervous.
I'd like to thank the Chamber, the Cullman Times, and mostly y'all for taking away from your day to come out here and listen to us. It proves that you're interested in good government. I think that's the reason I'm running. I really want to improve Cullman. I have a vision for the future. I want to work with the city. I want to work with the city council. I know they're all here today. I think with the borough's property coming up and the 222 exit working on it and Duck River coming online, I think Cullman is set up for growth for the next 20 to 30 years. And I would just love to be a part of that. Thank you.
Well, I also would like to thank you all for being here and thank the Cullman Times and the Chamber for their hard work around the community. And I suppose, to answer the question, if you had to pin me down and say, why would I seek the office of mayor? I feel like I have a public servant in my blood. After having served you in this community for almost 27 years, I feel like that since I have taken a step away from my youth that and my ability to serve you in the capacity that I have become accustomed to, that this is a natural evolution for me and for you to be able to serve you in another capacity but continue to serve you. And I would appreciate that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank the Chamber, thank Cullman Times for the opportunity to be here today and express our feelings about why we want to be mayor. My number one reason is I want to give back to a community that has been so good to me, to my family, and my grandparents. We're lifelong residents of this community. As mayor, I want to make sure that we never do anything to destroy the heritage, the integrity, and the beauty of this community. I have worked with all departments, and I will say this, you have a wonderful city service. The quality of life in this community, I intend to make sure that it remains what it is today. It's almost like Cullman is on the rise. When you look at other communities across the United States of America, you see a lot of cities actually going bankrupt. We're not in that shape. Being mayor means stewardship. It means taking care of what has been entrusted to you. I didn't run for mayor 4 years ago for a job. This is not a job. It's servant leadership. It's not how many people serve the leader, but it's how many people does the leader serve. And I serve all people of Cullman to make it a better place to live, work, play, and worship. Thank you very much.
I think the downtown projects that they're doing now has beautified the downtown. When your downtown dies, when the merchants leave, your city dies. If the Celebrate Cullman that we had a couple of weeks ago, it was a wonderful opportunity for people to come out and meet each other. I think that every time we can get and talk to each other and talk with our leaders, we're going to learn something about them, and you're going to learn something about the people that you're serving. As far as industry goes, Lord, this lady sitting right here and her crew, I don't know how you could do any better. With the school systems that we have, second in the state, that will bring business here, that'll bring people here. They've brought over $1 billion worth of infrastructure into Cullman in the last 10 years, and I'm going to give her a hand. She has done a remarkable job, and I think we'll just carry on with that tradition and let her keep doing her thing. Thank you.
I would say that to echo what Jerry said, as far as industry, just turn Dale and Peggy loose. That's what they do, and they've done a phenomenal job of that. And the reason that Cullman has done as well during this downturn in the economy is because of the jobs that the work of economic development has done over the past years to bring industry in, to have those jobs and that economic base for the community. And we didn't suffer in Cullman as a lot of other places did with unemployment and with the economy because of that. And our hats are off to the work of the office there. As far as how to continue to do that, in terms of what a mayor could do, I love Cullman. I love the people of Cullman. And that is somewhat contagious, because if you get people in here and you introduce them to our people and you show them our city, then they think, nobody goes away from Cullman thinking, that's the bunch of curmudgeons over there. I just can't stand that place. You just don't walk away from Cullman with that view, because Cullman is infectious. And so I think it's the way to get people in and to attract additional people in the future is to just let them meet us, and they'll want to come here. Thank you.
The first thing that you have to do as a mayor is you have to be a salesman. I spent 35 years in pharmaceutical sales. I am now a salesman for the city of Cullman. The first thing we did when I was elected, we made a trip to Royal Technologies to entice them to come to Cullman. We did that. So the mayor works with the Economic Development Agency to go after jobs, but also there's one very important thing. You've got to maintain the jobs you have here. So this department does not just bring them in and dump them. They continually work with them to make sure their needs are met. For example, last year after the storm, Topre announced a $109 million expansion. That creates more jobs. So you take care of what you got here. Rahal just announced recently over $100 million expansion. That's going on all time. So you have to take care of what you got. As far as retail, the mayor works with, once again, the Economic Development Agency to go out and recruit those agencies and retail business, restaurants, whatever. In the final analysis, they do their work also, and they determine they have certain criteria that they have to meet before they will come to a city, whether it's the population, whether it's their needs are needed in this community. So we are constantly doing that, and the first person that those companies and corporations see, the representative, is the mayor, and you have to make a good impression. And I think that I've been honest, I have shown my integrity, and I've shown my professionalism, and that's what gets the job done. Thank you.
My outlook on the city of Cullman is we need to find more for the children to do. I want to incorporate a water park for the children arcade, so they'll have something to do in the summer and the winter. Skateboarding was another option. Got to find somewhere for our skateboarders so they don't get injured in the traffic. New restaurants, of course, are going to come in and other places because of the alcohol sales. There's going to be a lot of money there. So Cullman's going to grow a lot in the next 4 years, and you just don't know what's going to come our way with the alcohol sales. And I want a lot of input from the people so we can work as one, and things will go smoother.
Well, I feel like that probably the first thing that comes to my mind is that due to my past experience professionally, I am somewhat of a peacemaker. And one of the things that I would like to see is our community come together and break down some of the walls of partition between some of our entities and agencies in order for us to really be able to, take hands together to move into the future. We do have a excellent opportunity here for growth and expansion, and if we want to preserve the spirit of the community that we have here, working together is going to be pivotal. And so I feel like the thing that I would bring to the office would be those peacemaking attributes to be able to get people to work hand in hand in the community.
One of the things that a mayor must be is a good listener. And I have proven those skills throughout the last 4 years. Also, you have to be a good communicator. But a listener listens to everyone, including citizens. A mayor does not just represent one segment of the city, represents all people, regardless of your party lines or your political affiliations. This is a non-political job. If we have something that needs to be done, we're supposed to do it. I don't think there's any walls up. And it was proven last year that we're a city of character. On April the 27th, did you see character? Did you see neighbor helping neighbor? Did you hear chainsaws? It was one of the most united efforts I've ever seen to bring this community together. It was city working with county. My skills is to reach across the aisle and work with every person possible. We have a good relationship, probably one of the best relationships with the city and the county that we've had in years. We got together and we worked together to make Duck River Dam a reality. It took some time, but we did that. Those skills are to communicate, but I see no walls. All of our departments coordinate with each other. We've got probably the best group of department heads that we've ever had. And I'll tell you this, I'm proud to be associated with them. And if you have a problem with any of them, you're going to have to come through me. Thank you.
Well, as I stated before, I have 3 businesses, and I'm already helping Cullman. So I want to keep our jobs local, our people that are local in Cullman. I want to give them the jobs. I don't want outsiders. When the tornado come and the tree cleanup, they were outsiders that were hired. A gentleman that I cut his hair, he said he didn't even get to bid on the job. I didn't think that was very nice. When Rock the South was here, I was told that everybody was outsiders, the vendors, the beer salesmen, the T-shirts, everybody was from outside. I don't think that's fair to our locals. So I want to keep our jobs local and take care of our own.
I'm also in sales, and I do agree with the mayor. Your job as mayor is to sell Cullman, to represent Cullman as efficient and for the growth that we have. I guess my abilities come from a very diverse background. I can get down in a muddy ditch with somebody and talk to them, or I can talk to the President of the United States. I wouldn't respect one any more than the other, but I would have the ability to listen to both. By listening, you have the ability to make people understand that you actually care about what they're saying. And that's the one thing that I'd like to bring as Mayor of Cullman. Thank you.
We did discuss that. We had some professional directors of tourism come in from Scottsboro, Alabama, and I believe it was Dothan. Is that right? Dothan, Alabama. There was no intent to get rid of the chamber. That was not the intent. It was to actually promote all of the activities that we had going on in the city and to work with the chamber to make sure that our story got out there as well. The chamber not only represents the city of Cullman, but it represents Cullman County. And we felt like we had a lot of events that we needed to go out and spread further and go beyond. Now, we have also since talked to the Chamber of Commerce, and they're in the process of hiring a new director. And that director, we may look at maybe funding some funds through the chamber, increase our funding to the chamber where they could get a full-time tourism. And when we look at tourism, we're not just talking about hanging around locally. We want a tourist director that would actually go to Decatur, Florence, Huntsville, and spread our story and tell how great Cullman is. And you do that by word of mouth. And a professional individual like that can do that. And we wanted to have more events brought to Cullman. There's just all types of things that we could be looking at. For example, A bass tournament would be a great event to have in Cullman. And I don't know if we've ever tried to go after that, but there's a lot of events out there that we can bring forward. We've also worked with entertainers. After Rock the South, let me just clarify one thing. Vendors at the Rock the South, they bought those spots, and we also had local vendors that were selling products at that Rock the South. And let me clarify this also. When you bring in FEMA, you have to use the Corps of Engineers, and we also hired other contractors.
Ms. Hammond, sure.
I think that would be a great idea. It would bring more business to Cullman, something more for people to do. There's not much to do around here. We do need to have other things to do. I'm originally from California, and I've done a lot of stuff in my lifetime, and I'm pretty sure most of you have that's in the room. But yeah, it's something that would be positive for Cullman, and I think it would be something good.
I'll agree with that. I think Park and Rec has carried Cullman for 35 years. I think they have done a phenomenal job of bringing tourism to Cullman. Tourism is money that we can't really count on unless we go after it. And I think having a director of tourism, I just think it's the next step in our growth. Working with the chamber, I don't know how y'all feel, but I'd like to see the young lady that's interim director stay. I think she's doing a phenomenal job. Thank you.
I think a tourism director could be an asset for our community. There again, I would want to sit down with the chamber and make sure that we weren't working at cross purposes, and that that we would not be stepping on their toes and, duplicating our efforts, and, make sure that that the peace was kept, so to speak, between those entities, as I was mentioning before. But and there again, as I mentioned, I think we're all tourism directors of Cullman, because whenever people come in the community and they've seen events and they've seen our people, they want to come back, because there's just something contagious about this community. So I think that we should all look at ourselves as tourism directors.
Well, I have so many, it's threes. I don't know which ones to target first. But I want everyone to work together, basically, to help Cullman to be, it's a great place. I love Cullman, or I wouldn't still be here. But I basically want us all to work together as one, so we can, do more positive things for Cullman. Never been in a position like this, so it would be great to be the first city mayor of Cullman. One thing I do think that is spending a lot of money is the personal use of the city property, the cars and such. Don't think we need to do that anymore. That's cost a lot of wear and tear and gas that folks have to pay for using the city vehicles for personal use. I do want to incorporate the water park arcade for the children and do other things for them, so they'll have more to do. And I really don't know anything else to say right now. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to promote harmony between the county and the city. Finish Duck River. Duck River's been in the making for 20 years, and it's about time it got done. Number 2, finish the 222 exchange. Bring the borough's property up to its potential. We're sitting on something down there that will be good for Cullman, be good for Cullman County, and it'll also be good for Good Hope. I think Good Hope's on board with the 222 exchange, and I think the borough's property is a tremendous piece of property to expand on. Number 1, the last 4 years, I agree, has been tough. I mean, we face some tough economic times. Our city employees bit the bullet. They've not had a raise. They've lost the step system in which they get a raise. I think it's about time this city stood up and paid them for their bullet that they bit. I will be an advocate for the city employees, not an adversary. Thank you.
My first priority, if elected, would be to make for sure, as I had a gentleman tell me this week. He said it seems as though the thing that has eroded and become a part of the political system in this country is that when a person is elected to office, that they allow the office to mold them instead of them molding the office. And my first priority would be to mold the office of mayor instead of let the office of mayor mold me. And my second priority would be to bring the community together and in a cohesive group. And then thirdly, once that's accomplished, to hand that off to our future generation.
Let me clarify something. City employees have received a pay raise for the last 3 years. As a matter of fact, this administration and this mayor was the only administration that ever gave city employees an $800 pay adjustment in Christmas of 2010. Is that not right? And we intend to give a pay raise this year, so I don't know where that's coming from. Cars used by city employees, the mayor, we pay to use those vehicles. And state law also says that anybody that's classified as an emergency responder, they get to use those vehicles. That's the law. So we're not doing anything that's under the table. What do I want? My 3 agendas. Number 1 is the quality of life in Cullman. I want to see the quality of life continue to rise. Number 1 place in the state of Alabama to raise children. I want to keep it that way. School system that is ranked 2nd in the state. We believe that education makes dreams come true, and we will continue to support education. I want to be a good steward, and this administration and the council have been good stewards of your tax dollars, and we will continue to do that. We're not big-time spenders by any means. When we went into office, we had to cut the budget by 25%, but the city employees stuck with us, and we have rewarded them, and we intend to keep rewarding them. And I want to make sure that the infrastructure in this community, we have a lot of water lines, I'm sure that some of you have noticed lately, that have been under the ground, and we've got to replace a lot of those. There are valves under there that's 40 years old. We've got to continue to keep good infrastructure in the city of Cullman. Thank you.
I think the borough's property will really determine on the 222 exit. If we can get the exchange there, the borough's property has no limit. I've heard things discussed about the borough's property as far as an amphitheater, as far as a huge retail giant coming in, hotels. You know, I'm not in those meetings, but I do know that the interchange will determine how the borough's property is developed. And I just want to be a part of developing that with the city council. I think we have a city council that can drive this city forward, and the borough's property is a fine place to start.
It's my understanding that the borough's property it was in the will that they left, that they indicated what they wanted to be used for, and so we're somewhat limited to use it as the family desired it to be used. And so, having said that, there's a specific direction that they wanted that to go. Then, once you take that into account, the rest of the answer would be the same as my previous answer, which would be to turn Dale and Peggy loose and let them do what they do at the Economic Development Office, because they're going to be able to bring the property up to the already phenomenal standards that we have with our other endeavors. So again, as Mr. Parker said, without having been in those meetings, I think that we can trust Dale and Peggy to use that as an asset for our community.
There's a lot of steps that have to be taken before we can do anything on that property. First and foremost, we have to get those interchanges off the interstate so that we can have connections. And that was actually promised about 5 years ago, I think, Peggy. And we have constantly been working on it. When I came into office, Peggy kind of had to pull me down a little bit because I had been in pharmaceutical sales for 35 years, and we got things done like that. But I found out real soon when you're working with the government, when you're working with FEMA, when you're working with ALDOT and the federals, they move a lot slower than Max Townsend wants to move. But first and foremost, what we have to do is we have to do a feasibility study. We don't want to go out there and start doing something and then 5 years down the road say, oh, we made a mistake. We should have put this over here. It is designated. On the south side, it's 110 acres that's designated for park and rec. That's not limited. Park and rec is a huge spectrum. It could be anywhere from horse trails, it could be a civic center, it could be an amphitheater, it could be convention center. We have a lot of possibilities there, but without a feasibility study, and we've already signed up for a feasibility study, and they're professionals, and they look at that and they give us advice. They go out and they look at a radius around this community. How many people could we bring in if we had something there? Would it be feasible to build a 10,000 seated amphitheater? You know, if we can't draw the people, you don't do that. On the north side, that was designated for industrial development. So what we are doing now, we're letting people know that. We're putting it out that we have 65 acres that's ready for industrial development. Another great thing about that property is infrastructure is there, sewer lines and water lines. So that's a big advantage. And we thank
Next
the
question.
Burroughs family.
We have to move forward.
I think it would be a great place for the water park, arcade for the kids. And anything else we can add to it would be great. And the reason I said what I said previous is because that's what the citizens had told me and the people that work in Cullman and have businesses in Cullman. So I do want to keep things local and help our community, not the outsiders. I want to bring businesses in like the water park and such. So instead of us going to Point Mallet or Spring Valley Beach or all these other places around us, I want to bring people here and bring the money here instead of us spending $10 or whatever to get somewhere else to have fun. So that's the big picture for me.
Well, that's a tough one because they're sitting right there. It's sort of like talking to somebody behind their back and they're sitting there looking at you. I think the chamber does a phenomenal job. Except for that director that's so mean to everybody. But talk about Leah. She keeps flashing those cards, And at least it's not Kurt back there going. But anyway, they do a great job, and I think that if the city just turns them loose, empowers them to do what they do, they have committees that look into improving our local businesses, improving industry, a gamut, a spectrum of the things that they do. Fantastic job on their part. And I think all you would need to do is to empower them to do what they're doing. They do a great job. Thank you.
The first thing we have to do with the chamber is reassure them that we're working with them. We're hand in hand. But we've got to make sure that we hire the right director. That director will be the face of this community. And that director will have to be working with the city, and they'll have to go out and do things. When you have assets, you promote those assets, you protect them, and you provide for them. And then everybody reaches for the rewards. And I think that the chamber in the past has done an excellent job for the entire county, but we're still lacking as far as tourism, and we're not pulling them out of the chamber by no means. We think the chamber is well established. We want to be a part of it. We want to work with them to ensure that we push those assets out in the community as far away as we can to draw people to Cullman and show them what we have in the city of Cullman. The director is the most important part of that chamber. That sets the tone and that sets the direction that the chamber will go.
I think they do their job. I have nothing to add to that. Everybody's answered that, and They do a good job. I'm proud of them. New businesses come in, they let the mayor know who's coming and what they want to do, and we accept them, and it brings more money to our community. So I have no problem with the Chamber of Commerce and working with them.
When I was contacted by the chamber about this, a young lady called me and talked to me just like she'd known me all my life. And Leah Bolin, I didn't know, but now I knew Leah Fuller. So it was awful embarrassing. She come up and introduced herself, and I thought, well, why you introduce yourself? She said, well, I'm interim director of the chamber. I said, you're Leah Fuller. Okay, now I finally knew who she was then. I think the chamber's done a wonderful job. I know the chamber works with members, but just as a layman out here listening to people, I'd like to see the chamber reach out to non-members and help them. Bring them into the chamber by helping them. Show them what you have to offer. Prove to them that you'll go the extra mile to help them, and I think you'll bring more chamber members in.
When you talk about annexation, there's several ways that people can annex. If they are contiguous with the city limits or Lake Catoma, they can request to be annexed into the city. But as far as going out and condemning property and trying to expand this city, I don't think that a lot of communities would like that. We can't go and just drag in property now. Just for example, the Burroughs property. Now, they came to us and wanted that annexed into the city, and although it was in the county, we had to jump through several hoops to make that happen, and the legislative delegation had to be a part of that. So we had to also get the county involved. The county signed off on it as well. They agreed to it because they realized that we could develop that property. I don't think Vinemont would be very interested in being annexed into the city of Cullman. I don't think Good Hope would either. So you just certain things that you can do. But if it is contiguous, we have that option. But we can't lasso property now like you used to. You actually have to go through the state legislature, and it has to be approved that way. I absolutely would not annex property to destroy something and build a huge shopping center. We wouldn't do that. Thank you.
Yes, I think that needs to be an option. And I know it's a procedure, like Mr. Townsend said, but yes, people's talked to me about that also. They also want to know where the city limits are, because a lot of people, it's so crooked here and there. They want city limit signs, so we need to, figure out where our city limits are, because some people are residential and then they curve around and get something else that's not, and it's very confusing to the citizens. So we need to clarify that for our citizens.
Annexation can be used for the good of Cullman. I annexed into Cullman. I'll set a rumor straight. I do live in the city limits of Cullman. I annexed in 6 years ago. Industrial Park 4 was behind my house. They were going to buy some property, jump a little road, and put the industrial park in the city limits. Well, the little road wasn't a road. It was a private driveway, and the people wouldn't let them do it. And Wayne Walker came to me and told me that they was having a problem and asked me if I'd annex into the city so they could annex Industrial Park 4. For the good jobs, I didn't have a problem with it. So I see annexation as a good thing. You can annex into the city, and then you can run for mayor.
I think we all need to consider the expense of that fire hydrant. Now, don't anybody go out there with a shovel. I was just joking. Referring back to some things that I mentioned earlier, one of the things you hear when you're out politicking and you're not sure if you're talking to a city or a county resident, and you happen to run into that county resident and they say, well, I live right on the edge of town, but I'm afraid of annexation because of, and they have their list of things that they're afraid of. And I think that that a lot of those things that they're afraid of about coming in the city would evaporate if they would take a hard look at the assets that it would be to them to be annexed. And I feel like that if we sort of courted that community around us a little bit better than we have in the past, and sort of reached out to them and let them know, what an asset it would be. I know that for a time I lived right outside of the city limits, out on Lake Atoma. I was about 50 yards out of the city limits. And every year when I paid those out-of-district fees to, get my children in the number 2 school in the state, it was, kind of an ouch in the pocketbook. So I would love to have been annexed, if we could have got that 50 yards, out of the way. So I think if we would reach out into the surrounding communities and let them know what benefit that they would be gaining, that they would voluntarily want to be annexed. Thank you.
Prior to this luncheon, and first to go will be Mr. Parker.
There's 2 ladies here today that I'd like to recognize. One I've known 60 years, my mother, Billy Parker. My wife of 30 years, Rebecca. Becky to everybody that knows her. During the storm, I was going to be strong. She called me and told me I needed to go home and check the animals because there was a storm coming, and I was sitting at the Busy Bee with Doc Gudger talking about her granddaughters. So it's a miracle that we ever left. I went home, saw the storm come over, immediately got my truck and drove back to town and saw what had happened. I went to check on my mother. She was okay. I proceeded to see Mike Manning at the power board. I knew that we'd got slammed hard. I asked Mike what I could do. He said, Jerry, I don't know what you can do. I said, well, I'll call Jack Truck Stop and I'll get you 150 sandwiches up here for you people to start eating. The mayor's son-in-law, Mike Hall, he's here today. And R.E. Garrison Trucking set the coal trucks up. We started filling them full of food and ice, and we started feeding people. We fed all the workers. The workers said they had never been treated like they were treated in Cullman. They bragged on us. We worked hard. We worked long hours. This community came together better than I've ever seen anybody come together. I've seen emergencies at sea, and even though we were highly trained to do what we did, it still didn't work as smooth as this city worked. There was a gentleman from Opp. I offered him a case of drinks, and he was diabetic. I immediately went to Pepsi that afternoon and got him 10 cases of non-sugar drinks. And when he came up the next morning, I offered him another case, and he said, son, I told you I can't drink
Parker,
that, I'm
that's
diabetic.
2 minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
First of all, let me just express my appreciation for being able to serve this community over the past 4 years. As I said before, I have done it with honesty, integrity, and professionalism, and if elected, I will continue to do that. It's a team effort. It's not an individual thing. It's a team effort. And I thank Mr. Parker for saying that the city was at its best during that storm. And we were, but we had a plan. When I first came in as mayor, the EMA called me and wanted me to come down and attend a class. That class was, what would you do in a natural disaster? So I volunteered to go to that class. It was 2 gentlemen from the Texas A&M University. One of them was an ex-FBI agent. The other was an ex-deputy sheriff, had been shot. They were also at the Ruby Ridge. They were at the Oklahoma City bombing. And the question they asked, what would you do if a natural disaster hit your community? Well, I sat down and I wrote out what I thought would be best. You have to have leaders. So first of all, we appointed 2 chiefs, the fire chief and the police chief, as head of that disaster relief team. Then I appointed Dale Greer as information officer and Tom Charney as safety officer. He is in charge of the city safety. But looking at the future, we have to realize that we must maintain the quality of life that we have in this community. and that's what I intend to do, to maintain the quality of life, go after jobs, maintain the jobs we have, and it takes a team effort, and my team, in the last 4 years, I would like to introduce you to my teammate, Kay Townsend. So on August the 28th, Max
2 minutes,
Townsend
Mayor.
is asking
That's
for your
time.
vote.
Thank you.
Well, I thought I was the only one that cried, so, but anyways, I also helped with the tornado. I didn't want the lights to come back on. The elders, the children, I delivered 600 meals a day for the churches, Temple Church. I also served food until there was no place to serve at Desperation Church. Both churches I helped to the end. Doesn't matter tornado or no tornado, I would be there for people. So I do like Cullman. There's a lot of sweet people here, and I would love to be your next mayor, and I'll try so hard not to cry. So thank you very much.
Well, in closing, let me say this. Obviously, having been an employee for the city of Cullman for almost 27 years, I could have come today armed with which streets need to be repaved, where the potholes are, which eave is hanging down on which building. And as I thought about that and I meditated on that list of distractions, I thought about you here today. And I thought the thing that I should come before you today and do is speak from my heart and answer these questions from my heart rather than from my head. And so I have endeavored to do that during this forum. And in closing, I would like to say that I love the people of this city. I love this community. And just like we found out on April the 27th, our buildings can be gone just like that. Trees, houses, just like that, they're gone. And the biggest asset in this community is our people. And that's why I would like to represent you, is to be able to bring that heart into City Hall. Thank you.